I'm pleased to welcome you at the International Legal Forum in St. Petersburg, and it's a great pleasure for me to see that a new section for the sports law was opened at this third forum, and this audience demonstrates to me that there are a number of people willing to speak on this topic. So, the exact title of our roundtable today is the work with supporters and responsibility for their behavior, safety management during sport events. At this roundtable, we will discuss the most topical and complex matters of the legal regulation of security during sport events. The Russian Federation is preparing a number of sport events of the highest level. On the 6th of July, Universal Universiade will be opened in Kazan. 1 year later, we shall open Sochi Winter Olympic Games. The next scheduled events are the hockey, Ice Hockey World Cup, Football World Cup, and World Games on wrestling. So the legal regulation and the responsibility of organizers, team owners and supporters is of course one of the topical issues in this context. We are very much focused on the responsibility of the club owners and responsibility of supporters. What is the legal status of different clubs, and shall they be held liable for the violations committed by their supporters? What measures and what punishments are appropriate for club owners and supporters? Whether the Russian Federation can successfully share the experience of other European countries and world countries. What are the novels? There are alterations suggested into certain legal acts of the Russian Federation to ensure public order and security at official sport events. And also we shall discuss other security issues at this roundtable. I'm the moderator of this roundtable. I'm a rector of St. Petersburg State University of Physical Culture after Levskov. Just a few words about our agenda. I will allow every speaker up to 10 minutes to make its presentation, and I kindly ask you to follow these limitations. And we are supposed to complete the discussions of our roundtable by 2 p.m. Our speakers are Mr. Yofa, who is the member of security committees and football development under Russian Football Union. Mr. Karakin, who is the director of legal regulation at the Russian Federation Ministry of Sport. Mr. Kozakov, he is the head of St. Petersburg office, and the partner from the Lawyers Bureau, Ivanyan and partner, Mr. Pivovarov, who is the Deputy General Director of the football club Zenit, and Prado de Toledo fellow Armando Sergio, a judge from San Paulo. These are our main speakers, and I will invite Mr. Pivovarov to be our first speaker. I will remind you that he is the Deputy General Director of Zenit Football Club. As you know, our country, Russia, won the right to organize Football World Club in 2018, and that's one of the, let's say, outstanding events comparable to the Olympics, and definitely all of us wish to organize this event as best as possible. So we have to be very focused and keen on security issues. Security for participants, for football players, their coaches, team owners, and of course spectators. In Russia, security issue at stadiums is really one of the most topical. I heard the figure 6,000 of arrested spectators, and more than the half were arrested during or after the football games. In St. Petersburg, for the violation of fire safety during the matches of Zenit Club, our fire department opened more than 100 cases. These figures demonstrate that there is an issue, and we should handle it. Right now there is just one federal law who describes the development and management of sports in the Russian Federation, but this law says nothing about spectators, about supporters, team owners, and there are just a few words speaking about safety and security. That's why violations or even crimes that are conducted by supporters doesn't have any specific legal definition, and they fall under the general administrative or criminal law. Usually that's hooliganisms, abuse of alcoholic beverages, and violation of fire safety rules. And usually these are our police bodies or fire brigades or emergency ministries who open cases. The punishments or the sanctions are also quite negligible. It's either very small amounts of fines or detention for the period up to 15 years. For the abuse of alcoholic beverages, the fine is only up to 1,000 rubles. For the violation of fire safety rules, the fine is only 500 rubles. So these are not sufficient sanctions to prevent or to restrict such violations, and usually even such sanctions are not applied due to the procedural issues. Police is willing and ready to be most strict against violators, but our fire safety authorities are not so strict, and despite multiple violations in the current year, no cases were opened against supporters who are missile throwing or throwing fires or flashballs. As you can see, our administrative law does not have any efficient mechanisms that will define this type of misconduct. Nor there is a single body who would be responsible to prosecute these crimes and violations. If we look at the criminal code, purchasing a ticket to visit a sport event, spectator enters into a service contract with the game organizer. According to our civil law, this is a public offer that is covered by the protection of consumer rights, and the integral right is the right to enter the stadium. The rules of behavior at the stadium set some restrictions and limitations and codes of behavior for the spectators, but these responsibilities are only civil responsibility. If a spectator is trying to bring a missile or a fireball, we can only ask him not to do it, or we don't have any legal instruments, we don't have any legal procedures to prevent him or her from doing so. Russian civil legislation pursues the protection of consumer rights, because consumers seem to be the most vulnerable and fragile parts of the society. But nevertheless, our legislation doesn't take into account that the consumers can violate the legislation. So the civil law doesn't use such preventive sanctions as a refusal to sell a ticket to persons with previous cases of misconduct, of violations, and even the right to remove the subscription to visit sport events is discussed heavily on a case-by-case basis. This supporter initiated fighting at the sector for kids and youth. He was detained. An administrative report was made on him. The police department sent a letter requesting to annul the season ticket for this supporter, but the supporter appealed to the court of law and won the case due to the consumer protection rights. The court even didn't take into account that he was misbehaving and misconducting, and the season ticket was returned to him together with the compensation for a moral hazard. We in the Court of Second Instance managed to protest against this decision, but we had to recall the rules of behavior that were approved even in the Soviet Union times. As you can see, we were missing the legal competence, the legal measures and powers to win this case in the court of first instance. I would like to say the following. First of all, we do care about the image of the club, because by association, the negative image created by supporters is transpolated to the club. We are reducing our audience because some spectators, fearing the misconduct of aggressive fans, do not come to our games. We also speak about damage to the stadium property. The club is also sanctioned by different leagues and sport federations. And I would like to speak more about these sanctions. I wonder how a club can be punished for a misconduct of adults who has nothing to do and have no legal or any other relations with the club. So if somebody puts on a scarf with the symbols and logos of our club, we shall be responsible for his behavior. There is a principle of strict liability for clubs for the behavior of supporters, and this principle says the following: for the behavior of supporters in the guest sector, the visiting club is responsible. For the behavior of supporters in all other sectors, it's the hosting club that is responsible. So we have to prove that any misconduct was not on the side of our supporters. This liability is neither administrative nor criminal. It has a kind of a corporate liability. We are responsible towards our federation. Our supporters are not do not have to know these rules, these requirements, or what sanctions will be applied against the club. And now we are facing the problem of regressive claims against supporters. I can recollect only one case when we recovered the fee that we paid to our confederation. So one of our supporters ran out to the field. It was detained, and he was fined for this misconduct. We applied to the Court of Justice to recover this fine, but there is no obvious link between the sanctions that are applied against the club and the behavior of every particular supporter.
As we can see, the Russian legislation has a lot of gaps. And the sports clubs, the sports associations, the police, and probably the whole Russian government is very interested to bring down the number of violations at the stadiums, as well as in filling in the gaps in the legislations which are prevalent nowadays. That is why the government introduced a bill into the State Duma, which was accepted in the first reading, and we will discuss this bill in detail. We do support this initiative wholeheartedly, although, of course, there are a number of issues, and we are submitting our proposals as a part of their day-to-day operations. Dear colleagues, I have suggestions to ask questions after we finish all of the speeches. I think we will have enough time, but still I would like to ask all of the speakers today to stick to the allotted 10 minutes. And right now I'm giving the floor to Mr. Prado de Toledo, Filo Armando Sergio, who is a judge from a referee from São Paulo. Я буду говорить по-английски, и мой коллега будет меня переводить на английский.
Perante os senhores aqui,
I'm very honored to be here today
nesse evento internacional em São Petersburgo,
in this international event.
e me sinto também na obrigação de poder falar por causa que o Brasil vai ter um papel muito importante no que diz respeito ao tema aqui tratado.
I feel obligated to speak here today, once Brazil will have an important role in the future in the soccer and in the events.
Em qualquer evento esportivo, a segurança do torcedor, bem como das autoridades e personalidades convidadas, jogadores, equipes esportivas, profissionais da imprensa e outros que participam da organização do evento, é prioridade absoluta das autoridades governamentais.
In any sport event, the safety of the supporters, as well as authorities, invited guests, players, sport teams, committees, media professionals, and all others who participate in the organization of the event, is a top priority for the government authorities.
Para garantir a segurança de todas essas pessoas em um evento de grande porte, como uma Copa do Mundo ou uma Olimpíada, sem descuidar da segurança do restante da população das cidades sedes, é imprescindível contar com um planejamento estratégico abrangente que integre os órgãos de segurança federais, estaduais e municipais com o Poder Judiciário, o Ministério Público, a Defensoria Pública e todas as outras instituições envolvidas que devem atuar de forma parceira.
To ensure the safety of all these people in a big event like the World Cup or the Olympic Games, without neglecting the security of the rest of the population of the whole city, it is essential to conceive a comprehensive strategic plan that integrates security bodies at the federal, state, and local levels with the judiciary, the public ministry, the public defender office, and other institutions involved, which must work in partnership.
E esse trabalho ele deve enfocar a atuação preventiva do Estado, vislumbrando todas as possibilidades de riscos à segurança pública e investindo no preparo de seus agentes na aquisição de equipamentos e tecnologia, além de garantir a efetividade e a firmeza da justiça criminal para assegurar o cumprimento das penas e evitar a impunidade, o que inclui a atuação de policiais civis, militares e de todos os outros órgãos de segurança.
This work should focus on the preventive action of the state, envisaging all possible risks to public safety and investing in the training of the staff and the acquisition of equipment and technology, and to ensure the effectiveness and firmness of criminal justice, to enforce the penalties and to avoid impunity, which includes the performance of the civil and military police and other security bodies.
O fundamental para garantir a segurança e a própria existência do evento esportivo é o respeito aos direitos e deveres do torcedor, que no Brasil eles estão especificados no Estatuto do Torcedor, uma lei que completou 10 anos de existência.
Critical to ensure the security of sporting events is the respect of the rights and duties of the supporters, which in Brazil are specified in the supporter law, law number 10,771/03, which yesterday May 15, completed 10 years of existence.
E esse estatuto, senhoras e senhores, estabelece que a responsabilidade pela segurança do torcedor é da entidade da prática desportiva que detém o mando do jogo e de seus dirigentes, que deverão, entre outras providências, solicitar ao poder público a presença dos agentes públicos de segurança e prestar as informações necessárias aos órgãos públicos de segurança e também transporte e higiene para que haja realização eficaz do evento.
The statute provides that the responsibility for the safety of the supporters is of the entity that organizes sporting events and their leaders, which should, among other measures, ask the government for the presence of public security officers responsible for the security within and outside the stadium, and provide the necessary information to public security bodies in addition to transportation to the event.
E entre os direitos do torcedor que eu ressalto estão a qualidade nas instalações de estádios e ginásios, segurança, higiene, acessibilidade, inclusive para os deficientes, transporte organizado, publicidade e transparência na organização da competição. Os ingressos devem ser numerados, a venda antecipada desses bilhetes com pelo menos 72 horas, o direito à meia entrada, ao acesso facilitado à ouvidoria ao Poder Judiciário, tendo direito à reparação quando comprovar que sofreu prejuízos materiais ou morais.
Among the rights of the supporters are quality premises for stadiums and gymnasiums, safety, hygiene, accessibility, including those with disabilities or reduced mobility, organized transportation, publicity and transparency in the organization of the competition, numbered tickets, pre-sale of tickets up to 72 hours, half price in case of students, and easy access to the ombudsman and to the judiciary, and the right to redress in case of material and moral damage.
Com relação às penas cabíveis para os clubes, estão a destituição ou suspensão por 6 meses dos dirigentes, impedimento de gozar de qualquer benefício fiscal em âmbito federal e suspensão por 6 meses dos repasses de recursos públicos federais da administração direta e indireta.
Regarding criminal sanctions for the clubs, they are the removal or suspension of their leaders for 6 months, impediment to enjoy any tax benefit on federal level, and suspension for 6 months of the transfer of resources from the federal government.
Por sua vez, o torcedor tem como dever ele ter o ingresso válido, não portar objetos, substâncias proibidas, consentir com revista pessoal, não portar cartazes ou entoar cânticos com mensagens ofensivas, inclusive e fundamentalmente no que diz respeito a caráter racista ou xenófobo, não portando ou utilizando fogos de artifício ou qualquer outros engenhos pirotécnicos, a não praticar ou incitar atos de violência, entre outros.
On the other hand, the supporters have as a duty having a valid ticket, do not carry objects, beverage or prohibited substance, comply with personal inspection, not carrying placards or chanting with offensive messages, including those with racist or xenophobic content, not carrying fireworks or other pyrotechnic device, and do not practice or incite acts of violence, among others.
O torcedor, como se vê, ele deve ter um comportamento que se espera de todos. E se desrespeitar os seus deveres, pode ser impossibilitado de ingressar no recinto esportivo ou ser imediatamente afastado, sem prejuízo de outras sanções administrativas, civis ou penais, se cabíveis.
As it turns out, the supporters should have a behavior that is expected of everyone, and disregarding their duties may be prohibited to enter the sporting events or be immediately removed without prejudice to other administrative, civil or criminal sanctions.
Com relação efetivamente à Copa do Mundo de 2014, as cidades brasileiras, principalmente São Paulo, têm ampla experiência em sediar eventos de grande porte, mas em 2014 vai sediar, como eu disse, a Copa do Mundo, e estima-se que 3,5 bilhões de pessoas acompanharão o jogo de abertura e cerca de 600 mil turistas internacionais circularão pelo país, além de mais de 3 milhões de brasileiros. Pode resumir assim.
Yeah, regarding the World Cup, we're saying that Brazil will be the host of World Cup in 2014, and you estimate 3.5 billion people watching the World Cup. More than 600,000 will be attending the games, and that will be an unprecedented impact on the history of soccer in Brazil.
Para garantir a segurança de toda a infraestrutura, com um porte desse, inúmeras ações governamentais vão ser implementadas, atentando-se para uma Copa onde existe elevado número de crianças.
In order to avoid any problem during the events, Brazil is taking a lot of actions in order to provide security measures inside the stadiums and outside.
E é importante lembrar que o período a ser considerado ultrapassa os 30 dias de duração da Copa, mas sim, cuidam-se durante 70 dias efetivo, que é desde a preparação até a desmontagem de estrutura e saída dos turistas.
Brazil is aware that it's not only 30 days the timetable period that he has to worry about the World Cup. It's a long time before in preparing and getting everything done.
As autoridades policiais brasileiras têm enfatizado que é necessária a garantia e a segurança pública num padrão internacional, como obrigação. Diante disso, o governo está padronizando os procedimentos de segurança em todo o país, com ênfase em 3 focos: ameaças externas, ameaças internas e proteção em portos e aeroportos.
Brazilian authorities, they are aware that we have to have a secured international standard quality. So Brazil is very focused on 3 points on security measures, which is external threats, internal threats, and security in ports and airports.
E nós estamos cuidando de um treinamento efetivo para os policiais, tendo em vista que a base para garantir a segurança é estar preparado para tudo, inclusive para atos que não são usuais em nossa cultura, como o terrorismo, mas que pode visar um evento com tamanha aglomeração de pessoas.
Yeah. Brazil is preparing their offices not only for the kind of violence that we are used to have there, but also the violence that we don't have, like terrorism. We will be prepared now for any kind of event.
E por essa razão, nós estamos cuidando de ter instrutores especiais para cursos. E os integrantes que nós estamos utilizando são da agência norte-americana FBI, com ampla experiência em eventos de grande esporte, como a Copa da África do Sul e Olimpíadas de Londres.
For this reason, subjects such as combating weapons of mass destruction are included in the schedule of courses currently conducted in several cities that will host the World Cup. Among the instructors of this course are members of the U.S. agency FBI, with extensive experience in large events like the World Cup, in South Africa and London Olympics.
E nós estamos também dando muita importância à área de inteligência, que é uma prioridade fundamental.
And we are also taking a lot of attention regarding the intelligence, which is fundamental to provide security.
De maneira mais ampla, já está sendo fomentado um diálogo forte e direto entre as polícias e a sociedade, visando aprimorar o trabalho e a conduta dos policiais e as políticas de segurança.
In order to improve the security measures in Brazil, the police department are having a long talk with the society as well, in order to make security better in Brazil.
E nós estamos cuidando também na segurança das questões de portos e aeroportos, que vão ser colocados em prática, e nessa Copa das Confederações, de 15 a 30 de junho de 2013, será uma experiência muito válida para tudo que nós vamos precisar para a Copa de 2014.
Previous to the World Cup, we have the Confederation Cup, which will be held from the 15th to 3rd of June of this year, and this will run as a test for Brazil to implement all the measures that we are planning for the World Cup.
Para a garantia da segurança e do bem-estar, nós adquirimos sistemas de monitoramento por câmaras, aparelhos de raio-x, detectores de metais, equipamentos para verificação de traços de explosivos, caminhões bombeiros, ambulância, carros de resgate e outros equipamentos de segurança.
To ensure safety and welfare of passengers during the event, new monitoring system for cameras, X-ray machines, metal detectors device, equipment for detecting explosives, fire trucks, ambulance, rescue cars, and other safety equipment is being purchased from Brazil.
E elaboramos detalhado plano de contingência para assegurar a disponibilidade de infraestrutura aeroportuária de forma contínua, abrangendo ações preventivas e corretivas para serem implementadas, reduzindo ou minimizando os impactos de tempo, serviço, equipamento e risco de ocorrências.
In addition to the acquisition of such equipment, a detailed contingency plan was elaborated to continuously ensure the availability of airport infrastructure, covering preventive and corrective actions to be implemented to reduce or minimize impacts and downtimes of equipment and service or the risk of occurrences.
Na outra página, esse gerenciamento já abrange medida como vistoria completa nas dependências aeroportuárias, visando os lugares onde possam ser ocultados objetos para a prática de atos ilícitos, monitoramento, reforço de equipes, etc.
We are very aware, looking for any kind of place that the person would hide something to use as a weapon. So the police of Brazil, they are very aware about this kind of stuff.
E nesse contexto de atuação governamental que se espera que a Copa do Mundo deixe um legado não apenas de modernização, mas principalmente de maior integração entre as forças policiais e demais órgãos de segurança do país.
It is in this broader context of government action that World Cup is expected to leave a legacy not only for the modernization of equipment and increased experience, but also for a great integration between the police and other security agencies in the country, for which all the society will eventually benefit.
E pedindo desculpas já encerrando, todos esses aspectos envolvem essas organizações, têm reflexo no nosso poder judiciário, em razão de inúmeras possibilidades de conflitos, e a Escola Paulista da Magistratura está preocupada com isso.
Justice Armando, he's the head of School of Justice of São Paulo, and he's saying that he's already apologized for the time of the speech, but he's saying that all these events cause a result in the judiciary finally. So the School of the Judges, they are very aware about this situation, and they are work full time to improve the security in Brazil.
As escolas de magistratura estão dedicando atenção especial para as questões ligadas às Copas do Mundo no curso de aperfeiçoamento dos juízes.
The School for Judges in Brazil, they are ministering a lot of courses in order to prepare all the judges and the legal practitioners to deal with all the issues during the World Cup.
E os servidores que irão efetivamente lidar diretamente com os turistas e todas as pessoas que virão de fora.
Not only the legal practitioners, but also everyone who is dealing with the customers, the tourism that is coming to Brazil.
E nós fizemos um curso longo sobre a Copa do Mundo, abrangendo as mais diversas áreas.
We did a very long course dealing with all these issues, with everyone involved.
E transmitimos isso a todas as escolas do país.
And this course was transmitted for all the schools in the country.
E para que o idioma não se torne problema, como é o meu aqui,
so that won't be a problem like he's today here.
Nós estamos dando curso para todos os servidores de pelo menos 2 línguas, para que eles tenham contato mais próximos com turistas.
Saying that in order to not have this problem that he's having here today, the school is also ministering 2 language courses for everyone in Brazil in order to help them attend everyone is coming.
E para concluir, o final, bem o final. Para concluir, eu quero salientar que a Escola Paulista da Magistratura está à disposição para colaborar de todas as formas ao seu alcance, com a disseminação dos conhecimentos, somando esforços e contribuindo para garantir a segurança e o bem-estar dos cidadãos que desfrutam de seus momentos de lazer em eventos esportivos ou culturais, bem como de todos os profissionais que trabalham para assegurar o sucesso desses eventos em todo o mundo.
To conclude, I want to emphasize that the São Paulo School of Judges is ready to collaborate in every possible way with the dissemination of knowledge, combining efforts and helping to ensure the safety and the welfare of the citizens who enjoy their leisure moments in sporting or cultural events, as well as all professionals who work to ensure the success of these events around the world. Thank you very much.
Спасибо. Уважаемые дамы и господа, хотел бы поблагодарить за
I just wanted to thank you for a very interesting speech from our Brazilian colleague and for a great sense of timing that you had. Thank you very much. And right now, I would like to give the floor to the Security Committee member for the development of football in the Russian Football Union, to Mr. Iofe.
Good afternoon. I'm not only the member of the committee, but I'm also a scientific leader of the High School of Sports Industry and a professor at the Plekhanov School. During the last 10 years, I actively and thoroughly studied the security at sports events, and I spent weeks and months in the United Kingdom, for example, in Liverpool club. And we studied the same topic in Manchester City, in the Football Association of United Kingdom, and in Italy. So this was just to tell you that I'm an expert in these matters. I came by high-speed train from Moscow today in the morning, especially to take part in this discussion, and immediately after I shall go back to Moscow. Just to start the discussion, I would like to support the statement of Mr. Pivovarov, who said that new legislative initiatives were made to upgrade the security at sport events. We believe that after the third and second reading, our state parliament will adopt this law, and the adoption of this law will initiate the adoption of rules of conduct for the visitors of sports events, and also security rules during the organization of different sport events. Frankly speaking, just to give you an outline of the current situation in Russia, in 2006 I was one of the main legislators for the development of rules and procedures of the same reasons. But we were not able to push this legislation. We were not able to promote our concept in relevant federal authorities. Our Minister of Internal Affairs, with the participation of Russian Union of Football, made a special law on security at sport events, but they deviated from our proposals. I would like to address our Minister of Sport and Mr. Mutko, who is the Minister of this ministry. They were the initiators, they were the active promoters, but unfortunately all their efforts ended up by the adoption of local rules. I hope that when this topic is raised on the federal level, we shall come to a more serious approach. Well, two comments. If these laws are adopted without parallel instructions to upgrade the existing sport facilities, these laws will not be effective, because nearly everybody says that our stadiums are in a shabby condition, and due to this improper physical state, the security cannot be effectively ensured. in UK, the state allocated significant funds for the retrofitting of stadiums, even remembering that sport clubs are private clubs in UK. We should also take into account administrative codes and criminal codes. Why this law is entitled security at official sport events? Because we conduct a number of competitions and cups for kids and youths. These are not official events, but nevertheless they are quite popular. So why do we restrict ourselves only to official events? And I want these innovations, these alterations be in compliance with the existing legislation. I looked the law on meetings, demonstrations and other public gatherings. So, if a meeting member or a demonstration member started a fight against police or special enforcement forces, the punishment for them is quite severe. But if the same happened between supporter and a police officer, the result will be quite negligible. So why one and the same offense, why one and the same misconduct has different legal impact and implications? Because we saw that at our stadiums, people turn in animals. Yeah, and in UK, coming back to UK, these people are not called supporters, they are not called fans, they are just correctly called hooligans. Unfortunately, even a new proposed law does not include the criminal liability, and this is not correct. For example, the supporter who has thrown a fireball during CSKA Zenit match, this person was to be punished under criminal law. The same should be applicable to the damage of property, seats and all other stadium facilities. Russian Federal Union of Football is actively participating in the development and the promotion of this law. The rules we are discussing are mainly prohibitive, so they prohibit the damage of the property, violation of rules, but it's not clear what are the relative punishments. Laws of every other country, such as Italy, UK and Spain, clearly define the possible punishment and even years of imprisonment. When our authorities tell me that we are not English and we are not Mexicans and we are entitled to be hooligans, I usually answer, look, we are going to host a World Cup in 2012 and we are supposed to comply with international rules and standards, otherwise it will be a shame on the country. One other aspect, we should check the compliance of our administrative and legal acts with international rules, such as International Olympic Committee or FIFA and UEFA. The draft rules of conduct today say that for each event a coordination committee must be organized to take the decision whether a game should be stopped or not after a severe violation of rules. If you take the rules of Russian Football Union that derived from FIFA and UEFA rules, they say that a judge can stop the game without any coordination committee. So there is a discrepancy in these two documents. Organizers of events. A draft federal law mentions only three categories. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a consumer, I'm a sports fan. So, according to the draft law, the organizers are owner of the stadium, club or team owner, or representatives of the federal authorities. Actually, who is the end organizer? Let's say a football game, Zenit Rostov. So who is the organizer? A club? Russian Cup game, such as Zenit Anji, who would be the organizer? And I asked this question to Mr. Kulikov. So, for example, if the game is held in Grozny, who will be the organizer and who will be responsible for the behavior of supporters? So the organizer is a Russian Football Union, but not the participating clubs. Another discrepancy, another gap in legislation.
I think, and I have to repeat myself by saying that, first of all, it is the Ministry of Sport, but also, of course, the Russian Football Union, which is also working a lot on the security. So they initiated a legislative base for the security, and it was also done personally by the Minister for Sports, Mr. Mutko. He created an all-Russia union for the supporters, and he was the one who managed this union. So in this case, we can say that it was a very significant achievement when we talk about legislative base for the security in the Russian sports milieu. So, and I can tell you, since I've studied football a lot, and on the brink of the World Cup of 2018, I think it is possible, or it should be possible, to initiate a new law to be passed on football, and this law should also reflect all of the experience, world experience that we have in this area. And this law could also introduce legislative novels that could reflect modern processes that are happening in football. The markets, as you know, interferes quite actively, and some of public organizations, some sports organizations, they pull away from it. First of all, this is a very important component of our economy, component of our government policy, and this is a very important challenge for us. And I think we are on the brink of solving it now, and that would give us an opportunity to meet the best practice, the best world practice when it comes to security during any sports events. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mikhail. Dear colleagues, right now I would like to give the floor to the head of the Department for Regulatory and Legislative Support of the Ministry of Sport of the Russian Federation, Mr. Karyakin. please, Vladimir. Dear colleagues, thank you very much for an opportunity to speak at such an important event. I would like to tell you about what we are doing in the governments and in our ministry to regulate this negative trend which started appearing during sports events in Russia in the last 10 years. Well, for this country, this was a relatively new thing because back in the Soviet times we did not really have football radicalism, we did not have supporter gangs or formations, we did not have fights between supporters of different teams. So before I started tackling this issue which became so prevalent in the last 5, 7 or even 10 years, well, before we started tackling it, we looked in detail at best international experience, and by that I mean primarily European experiences. Europe seems to be very developed in this regard, and we concluded in the ministry that the Russian experience can be split into two large areas. The first area includes such countries as Great Britain, France, Italy, the countries where security and safety during sports events is regulated jointly by organizers, clubs, and public authorities. And we can also look at the experience of Germany, where the whole process of organizing security is outsourced to football clubs. As we can see, both approaches to this process have very positive results. But taking into account the specificity of Russian law, taking into account the specificity of Russian mentality, when drafting the bill, we decided to base it on approaches that are prevalent in Great Britain. As Mikhail has said, we also looked at everything in detail. We visited several British football clubs. We had an honor of meeting football intelligence of Great Britain. We had an opportunity to understand the structure of how this process is organized. We had an opportunity to acquaint ourselves with the efficiency or with the actions that are being taken against the violent supporters. And we saw that in the last 10 years, what they managed to do, they really managed to turn around those really aggressive football hooligans and turn them into a very manageable group of supporters who are very active and yet very civil in supporting their teams. So having studied this experience, we decided jointly with the Ministry of Internal Affairs to start developing this project. Unfortunately, we did not manage to convince the authorities who are responsible for the conceptual side of the Russian law. We did not manage to convince them to make it valid for all events, like Mikhail said, all massive events, say non-sports events, but say festivals, music festivals, or different processions, non-political processions. So we decided to limit our work to sports events only. So the conceptual bill includes the following key elements. First of all, we had to determine the subjects who will be governed by this bill. And by that I mean we introduced such a notion as spectators into the sports law. We introduced the notions of owners or owners of sports facilities, and we also introduced a notion which is a very important one, is the notion of managers or governance. So if we look at the manager, that would be a steward of sorts. It's a stewardship. So we described in full detail the rights and obligations of all these three groups, and we came up with a list what these people should or should not do during a sports event. Following that, we looked at a number of very serious issues regarding a new penalty, which is an administrative ban on attending sports events. As international experience has shown, this is a very effective measure that allows to limit the activity of volatile supporters, and this is a measure that can actually influence their behavior, because once you take the right to attend a sports event from the supporter, and for some supporters this is the only aim and goal of their life, this is a very good preventive measure. And another, very serious area for us is improving the facilities, upgrading the facilities from the technical side, as also making the owners of sports facilities liable and responsible for the provision of state-of-the-art equipment at sports stadium. Let me tell you about each of these areas briefly. When this bill was viewed in the State Duma, we encountered a very active position from the Russian Union of Supporters. The Union of Supporters had a white panel discussion of this bill, and they concluded that the measures were very stringent, the measures introduced in the bill. I can tell you straight away that the measures were a compromise between the proposals from the Russian Internal Affairs Ministry and the proposals from the Ministry of Sports. Of course, the Ministry of Internal Affairs wants to shift the burden of responsibility to the organizers of sports events, and this is quite understandable, because if you look at at a large football match in Moscow, usually we have to attract about 30,000 police to maintain security, and this is the police that should provide security in the streets in the city. They should provide security at any event attended by a large number of people. But these people, instead of providing safety in the city, they are relocated to the stadium so that we can avoid violence and bloodshed. That's why the position of the Ministry of Internal Affairs is quite tough. They are proposing to introduce criminal responsibility for hooliganism, bodily harm, and use it as a qualifier, and such a qualifier will lead to more stringent sentencing for hooligans. Of course, that's created a lot of debate, and the law in its current reading does not contain such a measure. But after we brought it to the Parliament for the second time, we included a measure in the bill that introduces additional penalties such as incarceration, administrative proceedings. It introduces a new measure such as a ban to attend sports events. The duration of such a ban is still in discussion, but I think it will start from 1 year and go up to 3 years. I have to note once again that this novel again leads to a very wide panel discussion and quite a negative perception from the supporters. The second serious aspect, in our opinion, is how are we going to influence the owners of stadiums and the organizers of sports events so that they upgrade the material and the technical equipment of the facilities. The current law has a norm that says that all of the facilities should be listed in the list of sports facilities, which is being maintained by the Ministry of Sports. So in order to be included in this list, a sports facility should meet a number of requirements, including safety and security requirements. But unfortunately, in the 3 years that this norm has been enforced, we only have 16 facilities on our list, and the country has more than 400,000 of such facilities. Therefore, what we would like to offer, we would like to introduce a penalty to the administrative code, a penalty for the owners of sports facilities if such owners hold sports events in the facilities which is not on the list of sports facilities and does not meet safety and security requirements. Here we will have an administrative penalty, suspension of their operational license, and I think that would allow us to expedite the upgrading process for the sports facilities and all the related equipment. Of course, we believe that this measure will be effective in a year or 18 months after the bill is passed. That will give an opportunity or the time for the owners to upgrade all of the equipment and all of the facilities. And of course, in order for us to normalize the situation with football hooliganism, not just football, but any hooliganism, what we need to do, firstly, we need to provide significant funding to the stadiums. We have to provide video monitoring equipment. We have to provide IDs, all the supporters with name IDs. And here we've encountered another problem, such as the personified sale of tickets. We were offering this measure as a measure to identify a supporter and to bring it as a factor that might influence the behavior of a supporter. If the supporter knows that his name is known and his seat is known, then he would think twice whether to throw a firecracker at the stadium. But again, this measure was met with a lot of negativity from associations of supporters, and also we realized that the stadiums do not have all the things that are necessary to identify all of the supporters personally. So to summarize, or to give you the gist of my speech, I would like to tell you that the final version of the bill will, of course, include both the interests of the supporters, because the event is held for the supporters, but it will also account for the interests of the owners of sports facilities, because the owners of sports facilities are the subjects of security. But this bill will also be the first step for public authorities, which would allow them to pull the police from the stadiums and to shift the responsibility to the organizers and the owners of stadiums. Probably our concept is debatable in some regard. Probably it would raise a lot of questions, but we're just starting this process. We will build on it, and we are absolutely confident that by 2018 we will be fully ready and fully armed to receive more than 1 million of supporters from all over the world and hold the World Cup at the highest possible level, as well as represent our country at the highest possible level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vladimir Viktorovich, and I give the floor to the head of the representative office of the Lawyers Bureau, Ivanyan and partners, to Mr. Kozakov. Dear colleagues, I would like to present the position of the legal community and St. Petersburg legal community in particular. As we heard from the presentations of our partners, one of the means to ensure the security at sport events are the legal and public regulation. And the majority of novels that we see in new legal initiatives are first of all related to the administrative responsibility and liability for such violations and misconduct. I think that we have to focus on the balance of interest of all stakeholders, and in this case we should speak about the procedural rules to call to the administrative responsibility the violators of the public rules. I don't think that we should add any new articles into our existing legislation without a relevant legal practice. We have already heard that our judicial bodies experience some difficulties to prove that this misconduct of this violation did take place. This is due to the fact that it is done in crowds. It is a person who is hidden in a crowd of people, and as the previous speaker already said, with the current physical conditions of our stadium, it's difficult or sometimes impossible to point a finger on the real criminal. Plus, there are legal procedures for defense. And we have to follow all the existing requirements of our legal system. I think that today our courts and our law enforcement bodies are not yet ready to demonstrate and to prove their willingness to ensure public security at expense. Because we need to change the principle, the approach to the administrative offenses. Because the court and the judge is at the same time filling the report and making a statement. I'm speaking about administrative offenses. And we often see the situation when administrative protocols are sent to the courts, and there is no plaintiff, just the defendant, and the court begins to hesitate to consider the case as required by the administrative code, or just to be satisfied with the available documents. And this is not very inspiring to our judges, and this is not stimulating the judges to go to deep into the case and to seek all necessary evidence. And I think that in this respect, in addition to the adoption of new legislation or alteration of the existing legislation, we should change the court practice, and we should give more powers, more authorities to the judges to hear and to judge on these particular cases. As Mr. Pivovarov said correctly, with the existing equipment, we can monitor, we can trace every person from the moment of his entering to the stadium until his exit. So we can trace and monitor all cases of misconduct or violation of the rules. So such video materials could be used as evidence in courts, and it will be undisputable evidence that will, on the one hand, be a good material, and on the other hand will speed up the decision making. Plus, we know how police is acting. They have some performance indicators to meet, and very often they just choose the most popular article or let's say such statements in their protocols that they know by heart. Most often this is hooliganism and nothing else, and this is punished only by a fine, and the fine is levied by the person who has detected this crime or this offense. So, the question is who has more rights and who has more powers. Spectator can always say that he was just randomly picked from the crowd because he resembles any other spectator at this sport event. But according to the current practice, the police is always right, and it is extremely difficult, again, for the absence of video records or any other evidence to prove was it the offense conducted by this particular person or not. So either the security issues will gain the priority, and we will suspect anyone who was picked by a policeman and automatically will be sentenced, or we shall go the other way around, and the courts will just dismiss the majority of such cases for unwillingness to bother with such minor offenses. Today, draft federal law says that there is just one offense for supporters. That's the violation of the rules of conduct, while the range of the implications of such violations may differ. It can be either the property damage or the health hazard or the interruption in the game with different financial consequences on the participating team, on the stadium holders. So all these different cases have different financial implications, and if we introduce these categories, saying, let's say, what was the financial losses suffered due to this or that particular offense, it would be easier for the judges and for police to define the correct punishment. And the topic will become even more acute and complex if, in addition to the administrative sentences, we shall speak about the criminal offenses or the criminal persecution. I would like to thank all the previous speakers, in particular the statement of Mr. Joffe, who said that we need to ensure the correlation between the existing legislative initiative and the practice of their application, the practice of our courts, and we should make a proper balance between the rights and of the supporters as the consumers of certain services, and the rights of the general public to be safe and secure while visiting sport events.
So apart from that, and apart from criminal civil liability, we also have to look at the elimination of the reasons which lead to violations. And of course, if we look at football hooliganism, we can see that the root of this problem is that this way of self-expression has a certain amount of public support. We can say that some people in the general public actually do support such type of behavior. Therefore, in order to mitigate the risks when it comes to the negative activity of hooligans, I think what we could offer a sort of an alternative. We could offer them an alternative when it comes to self-expression, when it comes to self-expression in relation to supporters of other clubs. We can here also consider a very positive experience when before holding football matches, people have competitions between the supporters of different teams, so that they say organize a football match between supporters of different teams, so that if supporters can want to show that they're stronger, so that they can, that would allow them to vent their negative energy, and that would allow us to prevent violence between supporters of different gangs, as well as to reducing significantly violent episodes. Thank you very much, Alexei. Any questions? Yeah, I'd like to ask a question after the roundtable. Yeah, sure. I would like to ask our moderator. I would like to say a couple of things. First of all, I would like to draw your attention to a very serious aspect. And by we, I mean the people who provide security, coordination of security measures. We represent football or any other sports clubs, and we do not always have a very clear picture of all the nuances that are related to the problem. Say today we didn't say anything about racism and whether racism related to sports events exists in Russia, say xenophobic moods exhibited by supporters. We have all of this, and the new federal law envisages certain administrative functions. But for instance, in Turkey, for racist chanting, they give 2 years of jail, of incarceration. But what I want to say is that there is another nuance. For instance, Zenit, a football club in St. Petersburg, appealed to Lausanne. So here some people say, how can such a great club humiliate itself by going to bureaucrats? They have to settle their disputes on the football field. But here I think that what we see is the Russian mentality. If we take any club, even Zenit from St. Petersburg, any club has a right to appeal the decision in the international courts. A club has a right. And I believe that by going to Switzerland, Zenit created a precedent. And now everybody knows that you can go to an international sports tribunal, because we are here with our Russian or even Soviet mentality. We do not understand that we have such possibilities. And I think that by doing so, the club made a very positive shift. Here, I would also like to return to the fact that in Premier League, I had a document, maybe Pavel also had this document in his club, a document translated into Russian, which was in English originally, and this document is guidelines of UEFA on fighting racism. There, they also provide different characteristics of symbols or runes of different numbers that symbolize neo-Nazi or xenophobic expressions on banners or in chants, and I saw that they do not use it. Here we have 18 and 88, 2 figures. These are the symbols for the Nazi and neo-Nazi formations, especially in Germany. But in Germany, if somebody sees these numbers on T-shirts of supporters or on banners, there's a very, very severe penalty. But here we have guidelines And then a footballer from Cote d'Ivoire or a guy from Nigeria, they have numbers 18 or 88, and we do not even pay attention to this, and we do not pay attention to the banners displayed by certain clubs such as CSKA or Zenit, but